What are the qualities of an awesome daughter-in-law and a wonderful mother-in-law? Maybe we're in the stage of life to be both. But no matter what, it's hard to know what are the boundaries, how to make our relationship work. What do we do? What do we not say? What is our intention? What should we focus on to enhance our relationship? My name is Leah Abramov, certified life coach and educator, and I hope to share some ideas with you today on what are the roles of a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law in order to make the relationship flourish, possible, and positive, and how can we do it with grace? How can we do it with the right intention and create a wonderful relationship? Leah Abramov, being and becoming. Stay tuned for more. Being a wonderful daughter-in-law and mother-in-law can be a challenge if one does not know what to do, what to say, and what not to do. So I'm here to share with you some ideas on both roles. I will say a disclaimer, this video is not for mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws to send the video to each other directly. If you want to do it indirectly, fine. But please, this video is not to hurt anybody else's feelings. It's not for the mother-in-law or daughter-in-law to tell each other what to do. Each one of us, whether you're a mother-in-law or daughter-in-law, needs to grow in our own role and, of course, become better in our own role. It's not for us to tell the other what to do. So if you're doing your part, the other one will hopefully and eventually follow and learn from your example. Honoring our parents. Honoring parents is beyond our comprehension. We have no idea what honoring parents really entails. It entails a lot. It is such a big mitzvah. So first I want to touch on the daughter-in-law's part. The sleepless nights that a parent endures. We're going to focus on the mother-in-law, what she does right now. The sleepless nights and the care and carrying the crying baby in her arms for days on end, for nights on end. We really need to appreciate how much the mother-in-law does for us. Yes, she raised the son. Yes, it's her son. However, she raised him for us. Did she know this is going to be, the daughter-in-law? No. The point is, she raised her son the best way possible in order for us to get the best husband possible, for us. So it is an endless amount of gratitude that we owe to the parents, an endless amount of gratitude. And it is important for us to remember that this gratitude is only going to enhance our relationship as well. A woman's obligation to her husband overrides this obligation. So yes, we honor our parents. Yes, the daughter-in-law honors her own parents and she honors her in-laws. However, her obligation is her husband. If her husband allows her to honor her parents in a way that she's always visiting, maybe taking care, yes, that's wonderful. And a husband should be able to do that, especially when the parents have good intentions, they have good midot, good character traits, they're kind, they're helpful. However, if the husband sees that they're a negative influence on her, then he is allowed to tell her, minimize your visits and distance himself. Why? Because he is her number one. The husband is number one. No, we don't want to forget about our parents when we get married. We want to respect, give attention. However, we want to remember that our husband is our number one priority. And yes, due to his kindness, she will be able to do everything possible for her parents as well. So to the husbands, in turn, they should strive to emulate David HaMelech. So David HaMelech said to King Shaul, he said, my father. Even though he was his father-in-law, according to the sources, he actually wanted to give him more honor, and he honored him, and he called him my father instead. So husbands also should emulate his example. If you look at the 10 Commandments, it's so incredibly interesting because you will see that the commandment to honor parents is immediately followed by the admonition not to steal. So it doesn't make sense. What do you mean honor parents and then not to steal? Basically, If the children don't see their father and mother honoring their own parents, then it's as if they are stealing the grandparents from the children. If we don't let our children have a good relationship with the grandparents and see how we relate to the grandparents, it's as though we are stealing this from from our own children, that ability to see this relationship happen. So it's very, very important to do that, not to enable this stealing effect to happen. So to the daughters-in-law, let's think about the mother-in-law. She's the one who brought up your husband, the husband that you love. She raised him and cared for him and educated the very person that we chose to marry. And you found everything that you're looking for in him. She must have done so much in order for him to become the person that he is. And we need to show endless amount of gratitude and for her accomplishment. So when you begin to think that way, the whole picture changes. In other words, we just need to think. It's not because some people have great mother-in-laws and some people don't. No, it's the way you see the person. If you see that she is good and she has good intention, right? And she has kind attributes, then it's the way you see her. If you perceive her as good, then this is exactly how she will be to you. Try to understand all that she has done and put her in a positive role. We just have to put thinking into perspective. We don't need to judge every single thing that a mother-in-law does. You know, we also have parents and we also have sisters and brothers, and somehow we tend to judge them so favorably, even though they do have negative traits. How do I know they have the negative traits? Because everybody has negative traits, but we tend to give benefit of the doubt to our own families versus, and putting under the microscope our in-laws, our whether that's a mother-in-law, father-in-law, and everybody else. So we are not perfect ourselves, and our families aren't perfect. But because we have invested so much into our relationship, whether it's towards our sister, our brother, our parents, we overlook their negative and we accept it and we respect it. And we love them. Why do we love them? Because we gave to them. We invested in our relationship. So if you want a relationship, a positive relationship with your mother-in-law, give to her. We want to give to her. You know, as one bride said, she said, during the first week, I thought a lot about how much I owed my mother-in-law for raising such a wonderful son. I wanted to show her how much it meant to me. So I went over to her and I hugged her and I said, thanks for giving me such a wonderful husband. Every daughter-in-law can do so much in her relationship with her mother-in-law. All you have to do is study her. Pay attention to your mother-in-law. What makes her upset? What doesn't she like? What does she like? So, excuse me. You want to make sure that you pay attention to her and study her. You may not like, or you may like your current employer, but before approaching your employer, your boss, you're going to think a few times about what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, what time of day to approach the employer. You know, one of my friends shared with me before she took a day off, she thought about, exactly what to say, when to say it, and what time of day, if the employer was in a good mood. It's really important. So let's also work on that relationship. Any relationship that's important to you, you're going to invest in. So if your mother-in-law is very warm and non-interfering, make her your mother. You only have one mother, yes, but treat her like your mother. Give her respect, give her attention. Remember that once you create such a relationship, you can't complain about if she's a real mother and gives you advice. Because if she's warm and kind and caring and you start to have a relationship with her, she's going to want to give you advice. And so we can't say, okay, I don't want your advice, but I want your help and I want your feedback on this. If you're going to create a relationship, you're going to have her say things to you, such as advice, corrections. It may not feel good, but if you're not ready to receive it, this is like part of the package. If you want that relationship, it's going to come with it. But if you have a mother-in-law who has negative midot, who's intrusive, who's puts her nose into everything, who wants to know about everything, asks a lot of questions. So you want to be respectful to this mother-in-law, but also keep your distance. Because here you are, you don't like the fact that she's nosy and she asks a lot of questions, but then you need her help watching the kids. Maybe you need her help buying a lot of clothes, or giving, babysitting, whatever it is. But if she does that, then you are indebted to her, because then she's going to say probably, you should do this and you should do that, and you're gonna kind of owe her that time, attention, compliments, listening. So if you're not ready to do that, and if you have a very nosy mother-in-law who's a difficult person, she still needs to be respected, and appreciated, but you want to be respectful and keep your distance. The first step to develop with your mother-in-law is to give her the respect. It's very, very important. So those of us who are raising families in this generation may feel that the past generations are old school. Like, what do they know? Like, we like to completely ignore how they give us advice about raising kids, because our kids are so different than kids past generations, even 10 years ago. So yes, it's true, our generation is different, but there's nothing wrong with listening to the advice given and acknowledging it and saying, okay, that's interesting, and just letting it go. Whether you decide to follow through or not, it's really your call. So it's important to ask her every once in a while, maybe once a week, how she's doing. Ask her for advice, ask her for a recipe, the recipe that she'll do or not. Your husband, no matter what kind of mother-in-law you have, no matter if she's a great cook or she burned her food, it doesn't matter. The fact that his mother is his mother and she cooked the foods that she did, that is taste of home to your husband. So your husband appreciates when you do some of the recipes that his mother has done, because it reminds him of his home, his childhood, and he loves his mother. So you're giving her that sense of self-worth when you're doing that. Never ask your mother-in-law for advice on the relationship between you and your husband. Anything that's between you and your husband should remain private, should remain between the two of you. Your mother-in-law's house is not a 5-star hotel. So when you're there, you're helpful, you're giving your time, your effort, your energy. So it's important that when a daughter-in-law goes to her mother's house, she doesn't even ask if she needs help. Mom, do you need help? Go in the kitchen. How can I help you? So for a daughter-in-law, it's a little different. She could come in the kitchen, she can help, and offer herself. So it's important that we invest in that relationship with our help. It's very, very important. So, one mother-in-law painfully related to me that, she noticed that her daughter-in-law goes out of her way for her mother and for herself when she needs help, or when she invites them, she barely gets up. She's like a guest. You're not a guest. You're a daughter-in-law. So offer yourself, offer your help. Yes, we're all busy, but what are we busy with? Let's invest in our relationship, just to show that we care, that we can help. It's really, really important for that relationship. In harmonious relationship, in good relationships, a mother accepts the things that her son tells her differently than her daughter-in-law. So let's say you're talking to your mother-in-law and she invites you for Shabbat. What happens is something comes up during the week and you forgot that really you had other plans for this Shabbat, but you already said yes to your mother-in-law. Don't call your mother-in-law and tell her, sorry, Mom, we can't come. Why? Because that's something negative, right? She may already started shopping, started thinking about the menu. Ask your husband to please call his mom and say, you know what? Sorry, Mom, we had something come up. We didn't realize. I'm sorry, we can't come this Shabbat. Maybe next time. Never interfere in quarrels, in fights, arguments between your husband and his family. Let them deal with it. Let them work it out, and still be respectful and don't take sides. Never criticize your in-laws. Never, even if they give you trouble, if they are difficult. We have to try to see the positive in our in-laws, respect and accept them. Just take the good, right? When you eat a new kind of cake where you haven't even tried and the recipe looks interesting and you cut a piece, you try and take the parts that you like. Maybe you like the fruit, maybe you like the icing, maybe you like just the filling, or the cake itself. Just take the good parts and accept it all, right? You have to accept it. Accept the in-laws. This is just part of life. So we have to understand that our parents also aren't perfect, and we love them as a complete package. We need to do the same for others, especially our in-laws. So when a mother-in-law gives advice, one of the great things to say is, you're right, that's a very good idea, and it's up to you to follow through. Or if your in-laws are giving you advice on something that's psychological, let's say, about raising kids, we can say, I very much appreciate hearing this, and I know it's a psychological approach, but Judaism sees it this way, and you could disagree respectfully. So now we're going to talk about the mother-in-law. To the mother-in-law. Mother-in-law needs to treat her daughter-in-law like her daughter. Now, just because she's your daughter-in-law doesn't mean you get to treat her differently. What do I mean? So let's say a mother-in-law is talking to her own daughter, and her daughter says, "Mom, I worked so hard. I did this and this and that. I'm cooking for Shabbat or the holidays, and I have so much on my plate." What is the mother going to say? "Honey, you're working so hard. Let me know if you need help." But what if a daughter-in-law says this to her mother-in-law? The mother-in-law, that's what she needs to do as well. She doesn't need to say, "Oh, you know what? Maybe you should manage your schedule a little differently. Maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that," in a negative way. Like sometimes mother-in-laws may be judgmental. Like, you have it all wrong. Like, just tell her you are working so hard. That's what she wants to hear. Okay? There's a Jewish saying in Yiddish that says, a mother-in-law should give presents, swallow whatever she's got to say, and keep quiet. And when she visits her daughter-in-law, she should take a deep breath, have a bite to eat, and then leave the place. So make it a short and sweet visit. Don't take too long. A mother-in-law may want to be helpful, but she should only be helpful when she's asked. She should not be helpful when she's not asked. So she should not go into the kitchen and open the closets and start washing the dishes, the pile, only if she's asked to, because the daughter-in-law may feel uncomfortable. Only if you're asked. You stay in the living room, you relax, and if your daughter-in-law asks you to help her, then that's more than welcome. When you're visiting your daughter-in-law, ask what to bring. If the daughter-in-law doesn't like sweets for her children, then don't buy sweets. Best thing to do is buy whatever she wants or give money, especially when you're buying presents. You want her to be appreciative of the presents, but if you're going to buy her something that she's not going to wear, or she's very particular on clothes and jewelry, then just give her money and you won't be disappointed and she won't be disappointed. So when in-laws give furniture to newlyweds, they feel like, "Oh, look what I did. Look how much I did. We gave you furniture, we gave you money, we gave you the apartment. I didn't do anything." And that the in-laws may feel very, very entitled. And that's very, very wrong. If Hashem gave one side of the family more money, more opportunity, more time, and ability to give more, then that needs to be appreciated and acknowledged, and the person needs to feel good about giving. The in-laws need to feel good because it's their gain. They gain by giving. The more you give, the more you gain. But it's not a form of entitlement. Look what we did. If you have more, you need to give more. And every side gives exactly what they can. Mother-in-laws also never saying anything negative about your daughter-in-law to your son. It's very, very important. So these are some of my own ideas. The previous ideas was from Rebbitzin, Esther Greenberg. Okay, so to daughter-in-laws. Respect is due at all times to mother-in-laws. Listening to their advice. You don't have to follow through. Calling at least once a week to say Shabbat Shalom, how are you doing? It goes a long way. When you call your mother-in-law, the mother-in-law knows there's peace between you and your husband, and there's nachat. Really, they don't want anything else. They just want good news. And they shouldn't get bad news, right? That's not who you go to vent frustration about your husband, about life, God forbid. So mother-in-law wants to feel important and needed. And even though it may be some small advice or inquiry, ask for this advice. "Mom, what would you do if this happened? Mom, I'm going through this." It's very respectful to call her mom. There's some people who call their mother-in-laws other things that the mother-in-laws really just don't appreciate. Ask your mother-in-law, "What do you want me to call you?" And of course, I probably want to be called mom. It's really, really important because that develops a closeness. When a daughter-in-law calls, the in-laws know that there's shalom bayit. Yes, everyone has difficult schedules. Sometimes people have more hectic schedules than other weeks. Yes, we're busy, but it's important to be productive. This mother-in-law one day won't be here, right? I want to invest in my relationship the best way that I can. She did so much for my husband. At least I could show the gratitude by being the best I can be to her. When you have a good relationship with your in-laws, your children will have a positive relationship with their in-laws. Why? Because they're learning. So there's people who have negative relationship with in-laws. Why? Because they saw their mother have a negative relationship with in-laws. But maybe if you're one of those people who said, you know what, I saw a negative relationship with my mother and her in-laws, but I want to put a stop to this, and you can. It doesn't mean you'll automatically be like your mom. So it's important to get these tools, work on yourself, because you are going to transmit that relationship to your own children. Your children are learning from you, the way you talk to your mother-in-law. If you talk to your mother-in-law, a friend of mine shared that she calls her mother-in-law in front of her husband. When they had tension in the relationship, she decided to call her. Sorry. She decided to call her more often, and that just brought so much delight in her husband's face that she noticed. And that's a beautiful idea. Always speak positively about your husband and don't complain to your mother-in-law, even if you know that she'll take your side. It's not a good habit to put your husband down, even to his own mother, knowing that she'd probably talk to him. That's not a good habit. So that's not good to do for yourself. You should not complain about him. Work it out together. Respecting your in-laws goes hand in hand with respecting your parents. Our sages teach us that if you respect your parents, you'll be granted a long life, a healthy life, success. Who doesn't want a long, healthy, successful, wealthy life? Who doesn't want that? So we all strive to live in this way, to want this, not to feel uncomfortable, to live long lives. But it goes hand in hand with respecting your in-laws. It's not forget your in-laws and respect your parents. So it's really, really important that we internalize that. To mother-in-laws, remember, she is not you. She's not meant to be exactly like you. Don't compare. Give advice only when you're asked. So don't try to correct your daughter-in-law. Don't start helping unless you're asked. So before you come, you call. It's not open door policy. Some people say, oh, it's open door policy in our house. Okay, great. But there was one situation where someone related that, she was actually on her way to the mikvah to immerse. And all of a sudden, either the parents or the in-laws came, I'm not sure, I don't remember. But the point is, she was so surprised to see them. And it was a very uncomfortable situation because they just dropped by for tea. You don't do that. You have to call in advance. Can I please come? Is this a good time? So it's very important to give that respect, to give that space. No matter how good relationship it is with your daughter-in-law, you have to be respectful to her privacy. Call before you come, and this way the relationship will flourish. So as a daughter-in-law, think about how hard it must be for your mother-in-law to spend her whole life bringing up a son and then feel like she's losing him. And on the other hand, if she feels like she's gaining a daughter, she won't be jealous and demanding, and she won't be nosy, right? If you're going to make that relationship happen, it's all going to be positive. And as a mother-in-law, love your daughter-in-law. You have gained a daughter without the hard work. Now, mother-in-laws and daughter-in-laws, it all depends how you're thinking about each other. Think about each other in a positive way. Use this positive approach. Judge each other favorably. Yes, there's going to be sometimes disagreements. There's going to be uncomfortable moments and situations. That's why there's teshuvah. That's why there's something called an apology. And believe me, you will have a closer relationship if you apologize, if you're honest with each other, and you enhance your relationship by making a new start. Appreciating the insights of Rebbetzin Esther Greenberg in Woman to Woman. Leah Abramov, Being and Becoming. Awakening awareness of your greatness and potential.